Sparking Zero released a new trailer for the upcoming DLC announced back in January of 2026, and it's amazing. Maybe we're back, finally, after all this time. The new trailer just upped the hype incredibly for me regarding Sparking Zero, because it feels like everything the player base has been complaining about is finally getting addressed and worked on for the game. We got a crap ton of characters, new maps, new game mechanics, new modes, new ultimates, and even new costumes. It's insane how much they're adding, especially after the Super Hero and Diamond DLCs, which, yeah, were not the best. I want to go over the trailer, what this could mean, what I think of all of this will look like once we finally have the DLC, and of course speculate on what may be coming down the pipeline. So the trailer starts off with new characters, which really wasn't a surprise. We see characters from GT, Super, OG Dragon Ball, and the movies being included here. The trailer announced that 30 plus characters would be coming in, and so far I've counted 22. I'm assuming they're also going to be including the transformations as separate characters, just like Vegeta and Trunks' Super Saiyan forms. We also saw they're adding Fasha and Toma from Bardock's Platoon in the original movie, so perhaps we're going to be seeing the other two on the DLC comes out. This may have sounded far-fetched back in 2025, but so far the trailer is giving me hope that Sparking Zero is finally going to become the game that we all dreamed it would be. Another reason why I feel this is plausible is that it's another chance to expand on one of the new mechanics they're bringing in with the co-op ultimate attacks. Imagine a team-up attack between the OG Saiyan squad. And yeah, I call it OG because, well, they're like the only one we ever met. We also saw Nova Shadow in the trailer, which was a fan favorite back in BT3. I still want to believe we'll get the rest of the Shadow Dragons, and perhaps also a team-up. Who knows? I know I'm starting to reach here, but if Pansy and Chile made it into the game with practically no movesets, then I think characters that have actually fought in the series also have a good chance of joining the roster. As far as I know, the developers haven't set a number in stone, like we'll only add up to X amount of characters in the roster, so yeah, that pretty much means they'll be supporting the game until they no longer see it profitable, which, given Dragon Ball's wide roster up until now, may indicate we still have a long way to go. I've talked about how they could do character packs with themes like Shadow Dragons or characters from games. I think it's also important that they remember Shallot's in the game. They could still add his transformations, most likely as another DLC, but hey, I'm hoping it's cheap. It better be cheap. All in all, it's not like we're lacking on the roster side, already more than 200 characters and more coming the way. I consider that in terms of new additions, it will all boil down to what characters are mostly requested, at least in my opinion. Now the trailer also confirmed we're having 4 new stages, which are Kame House, Bitter Tundra, Kami's Lookout, and Outer Space. Honestly, only getting 4 stages did feel like a bit of a letdown. Technically there are 5 stages since Outer Space does have 2 variants, which is a neat touch. But I do hope we get more stages in the future, even if that means no more characters for a while. Again, the roster is pretty big, guys, so I'm pretty sure I'm not alone when I say that more stages would be very welcomed. Now, one thing I want to address is that the trailer does seem to be mixing a couple of things. Obviously, most of what was shown will be paid content, like characters, costumes, and yes, very likely the stages. And that's where I'm not really sure how to feel. I don't like that there's a possibility they'll make you pay for some of these stages. The lack of stages has been a critique to the game since it came out, and ever since we've only gotten the first Demon World from Daima. Now, that stage was added as part of the free update, which I feel is the devs acknowledging this issue, and I'm hoping that these other stages will also be treated similarly. I feel that it's a huge step back to display all of this new content and lock it behind a paywall. If there's one thing the community has been able to agree on is that a lot of the good changes and updates we've gotten up until now should have been added since the game's launch, so I can see players getting frustrated or upset if they end up having to pay for this. All in all, I'm hoping more stages come our way, perhaps some new maps, including new areas that were revealed in Super. And yeah, it's a bit of an idealistic perspective, but if they're going to be adding stages from the previous entries, then I really wish they would be included as free updates, because once again, I feel the expectation a lot of people had when buying this game was not met when they finally got the game. We've gone over this. Now moving on to even more fun parts, the trailer also talks about costumes and special attacks, and this one really made me happy. I've always thought it was a huge missed opportunity not to draw more inspiration from the movies, filler episodes, and certain fights. Well, looks like I wasn't the only one thinking this. Starting from the costumes, we get Goku's iconic Capsule Corp outfit before he fights Cell. Gohan's like little Chinese outfit too. I don't really know what to call it, but it's there. We also get adult Gohan's orange high school uniform, Goku's End of Z outfit, and this one is a big one. One of the most requested skins I've seen for Sparking Zero is Goku's End of Z outfit. I personally never really had any preference towards it. A lot of people seem to love it. I think it's because it sort of symbolizes Goku's ascendancy from just a very advanced student to finally a master. But yeah, that's what was shown in the trailer. So here's to hoping that other characters will get more outfits too. For example, Broly from the Super movie. For some reason, they didn't include the one where he has like this spandex like tight shirt that he uses during the early parts of the series of the film. Again, so much inspiration can be drawn from both the anime and manga. Any concept art that's lying around with different designs, manga covers, hell, if they added adult Gohan's original design for the Buu saga, that would be just immaculate. They showcased animations from the anime as well, like when Gohan first stopped a robbery, or Goku's close-up when he's stopping Cooler Supernova from the movie. They showed the classic GT intro as a co-op attack between Goku, Pan, and Trunks. Or at least I hope it is. I'm thinking they may tie the ultimates and attacks to specific costumes, so only by choosing a specific outfit for your character will you use different special attacks. I'm not really sold on that approach, to be honest. I think being able to assign them regardless of the costume the character is using would be a better way to go about it. How much rework and development will go into this? I have no clue. I'm no subject matter expert there, but we'll just have to trust and wait, right? I think that approach is sort of working for us so far. This, I feel, is a good segue to move on to my next item, which is implementation. How is all of this gonna look like once it finally drops? Well, first off, a lot of what was shown in the trailer I feel won't be part of the DLC per se, but will come out once the DLC drops. Obviously, new game modes will be free. It would be a kick if they locked that behind another paywall. With previous releases, though, we've seen them kinda take shortcuts, like adding Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta and Super Saiyan 4 Daima Goku as separate characters rather than transformations. Kid Goku didn't even get his Super Saiyan 3 transformation either. So yeah, I don't wanna be that guy. I'm seriously hyped for this DLC. There's gonna be so much to do now. I still have to finish Mission 100. I've been 100% focused on Resident Evil 9, which, if you haven't checked out, feel free to do so. Hashtag shameless plug. I am wondering how this is going to look like. If it's meant to be just one DLC including all of the things we just saw, or if they'll also be releasing them like separate packs so they can ration it throughout the year. You guys think they are going to be releasing anything else for this year, for that matter? I still have things I wish were added, like the customization options to add accessories to your characters. I mean, heck, the thought of Broly from the C films pulling up to a ranked match with Gohan's 4-star hat, come on, that would be peak cinema. At the end of the day, once again, we'll just sort of have to trust and wait and see how developers are gonna go about all of this, but yeah, that is one primary concern that I have. Or not even concern, just some food for thought, you could say. Now, moving on to the big ones. New game mechanics. This is something that I honestly never thought I would see in the game, but I'm really excited about it. We've talked about the new co-op ultimate attacks that are coming and how nice it would be if they didn't limit it to the main cast, but really expanded on it. Like in Ultimate Ninja Storm, you know, if you chose 3 characters from the Akatsuki or 3 characters from the Jinchuriki or the Kage, if you landed your ultimate attack, you would see a special animation that would not play out unless you chose specific characters from one of those groups, right? Now, this never really does happen in the anime, but who was gonna complain about that? The animations were dope, and it's such a cool thing to see your characters, who are canonically within the same faction, actually cooperate and show some teamwork. This is why I was saying that it would be such a crazy thing to get to see Bardock's platoon actually display the synergy that's allowed them to conquer so many other planets. And heck, we don't even have to limit it to factions like the Goku family. Imagine a co-op attack between Goku, Bardock, Gohan, and Goten. Now, I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, because the trailer did only showcase, I think, cooperations between 2 characters. So you have like 18 and 17, Goku and Vegeta, perhaps Bardock with one of his other teammates. So who knows? Maybe the scope of this is a little bit different from what I'm thinking. But the point is, if we're gonna go through the troubles of adding cooperative ultimate attacks between specific characters, once again, let's not just limit ourselves to Goku and Vegeta and Trunks, or Goku and Gohan. Let's push the boundaries with this. Let's go a little bit further, you know? A little bit further beyond, maybe. Now, we also got to see a new tech that they're going to be implementing where you send your opponent flying away and you can follow up with a beam attack from another teammate in your group. I assume you'll be able to do this by swapping characters, maybe? It does feel a little bit similar to when you would do follow-ups with the Dragon Vanishes in BT3 while in max power, and at a certain point your character would just fire a Kamehameha to hit the opponent. I'm getting some very similar vibes here, but it all depends once again on how the developers are going to implement this. Is this going to be like some sort of specific input, or are there going to be some conditions that need to be met before you can do this? You know, it's still a little bit unclear, but once again, we'll know once we finally have the DLC in our hands. Now, there is something else that I also wanted to address. Now that we're talking about activation conditions and how this is gonna work, what's up with that new Sparky mode? Somebody please explain to me what's up with that, because the buffs I saw in the trailer were scary. I don't want to imagine somebody having that much kind of power and being able to spam it, specifically on ranked. Which makes me wonder, how are you going to activate this? Are they getting rid of sparking mode entirely and just like revamping it into this new ultra powered state? Or like, yeah, how is this going to work, you know? My assumption would be that you can charge your key all the way into sparking mode and then you get that insane buff, contrary to just activating sparking mode and getting the buff right away. I think this would be a really good way to sort of counterbalance so many characters having instant sparking in the roster. And yes, I know we've also added some nerfs to the move, like some defense debuffs that you get and that they last quite a while, honestly. But once again, it'll all boil down to how they go about implementing this, right? So will it be just something that will it be sort of like a cost versus benefit kind of thing, where if I want the full power sparking mode, I'm gonna have to invest the time to charge up my key in order to trigger it? Or if I just really need to have sparking mode activated, then I'll just go ahead and spend my 4 skill points and activate it, you know? Honestly, out of all the things that people have been asking the developers to include in the game, new game mechanics really wasn't something that I or I think many other people contemplated. Or, I don't know, I never really saw anybody specifically mention things like that, you know, like when you swap out, have another teammate jump in and follow up on your attack. Things like that. I don't think I've ever seen anybody make mentions of it, but if we are going to be contemplating more changes like that, then I do have a couple of bullet points that I would like to share. Number 1 is interrupting your opponent's character switch. This is something that I think should be included, since who knows how forever ago. I mean, we've seen characters, team fights in Dragon Ball Z is not a very weird thing, right? It's happened plenty of times, and sometimes what will happen is when one character realizes they're in deep shit, they're gonna try and get the hell out of there, and because the other one is so fast, or much more powerful, they'll just cut them off and not let them escape, you know? If the game can recreate something like that, it would be really cool. I know. Raging Blast 2 had something similar to this, but I think it was rather negligible because it really didn't feel like any impact or anything was gonna come out of it. It was just a cool action sequence that you could do with your opponent during a fight. I get that this can be a very oppressive mechanic, you know, have maybe a better player just constantly hindering another player's character swaps could be a pain in the ass. But if you're careful about how you implement it, I think it's something that can actually work. I don't know, think of it like maybe a privilege. You have to pay for the option to be able to actually intercept your opponent's character switches. You know, like, I don't know, make it a currency. Use skill points to intercept each attempt, and if you try to intercept it more than once in a fight, then have the skill points go up. You know, like if the first time you want to do it, you have to pay one skill point. The next time it'll cost you two. The next time it'll cost you three, and it resets every time another character. I don't know, a character dies or when the swap is actually successful. And if your opponent loses, or if you being the one intercepting loses, you get punished by having your swap meter reset, kind of like when you transform during the fight. I don't know. I always thought that it would be a really cool mechanic to also have in the game. I wish we get to see something like that. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, moving on to point number 2, we have changing maps. And what I mean by changing maps is, you know how in fighters, when you hit somebody really hard, I don't really know the activation conditions for this, but when you hit somebody really hard, you can send them flying to another map, and then the entire setting changes. I don't know, think of it like you're in the city, and then you hit somebody so hard that they end up falling and landing in the islands. So now the game buffers and swaps over to the islands, and now that's where that's where the fight is taking place. Now, I know this is a bit of a taller ask, primarily because there's a lot of rendering going on, right? There's so much that's destructible in the environment that reloading all of that and rendering, I'm not a tech geek, I'm not that well knowledged in it, but I can assume it would be a little bit of heavy lifting task for the system, unless the developers can find out a way to make it super optimal, which is, well, they're the developers, I'm just the consumer, right? But my point with this is, it's really, I think it would be a really fun mechanic to also include, and also evolve from what Budokai Tenkaichi 3 had done. One of the reasons why the expectations for this game were so high is because they were saying that this was going to be like a spiritual successor to the Budokai Tenkaichi series. And one thing that I've always acknowledged, and that I will keep saying up until the day I die, is Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is the closest experience to a Dragon Ball fight that you can live through a game. I'll die on this hill. I know there are quote-unquote better games out there, you know, you have fighters, you have Xenoverse with better implementations. I don't care. I think that, to me personally, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was the peak of the series, and the mechanics and changes that I'm talking about here are things that I think do elevate and do actually make Sparking Zero look more like Budokai Tenkaichi 3 rather than that weird cousin that nobody wants to talk to. Being able to change maps, once again, I know it can be a bit of a tall ask, but I have thought of some ways that you can sort of not make it that big of a tall ask. Case in point would be, for example, not adding this feature to every single map, making it so that only coherent maps have this type of connection, you know? It doesn't make sense if you send somebody flying away in the hyperbolic time chamber and they suddenly land in, I don't know, New Domino City or what? No, that's from Yu-Gi-Oh! In a new city, right? It would be much more plausible if you're fighting in the rocky area, and then you're sent flying away, and then you land in the city. You were hit so hard that you went from the desert that's in another place in the planet to the city. Something like that. And I would like it if they implemented it as being sort of like a cause and effect kind of mechanic, you know? The effect is obviously characters changing the map, but the cause, that's what I really want developers to put in some thought, you know? Perhaps each map randomly loads a secret exit, and if your character gets thrown away into that exit, then you change maps or something like that. You know, it doesn't make sense if you shoot a key blast and suddenly your opponent is sent flying away and you land in a different map, right? It has to be coherent with what's going to be happening next. So, yeah, so far we have adding new maps and also interrupting your opponent's character switch. The next thing that I would want to see is, and I've thought about this before, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, but once again, quoting from some of the nice changes that Raging Blast 2 brought into the entire, I don't know, how would you say that, environment, I guess, is customization options for your character supers. Now, obviously for this to actually be, like, have an impact, you need to have more ultimates or supers to choose from, right? So if we applied it now as it is, I think characters like Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and maybe 3 or 4 more would be able to get a little bit more value out of this. But it would be something similar to what happened with the costumes, where like only Goku and Gohan had any actually relevant changes. There are very so few in between that it really does feel like that was heavily undercooked. So adding the option to swap out and change the ultimates your character's gonna use in a fight is a really cool concept, as long as we have material to work with. Because if, for example, I wanna edit Kid Boo's ultimates, but he only has the 3 that he was released with, then what's the point, you know? So yeah, this is another mechanic that I wish we could get, and if we did get it, once again, it's gonna imply a lot of rework and probably even more development for the team. But hey, I'd say it would be really worth it, especially because I'm sure I'm not the only one that's been asking for something like this in the game. Now, speaking of tall orders, we also got new game modes. We got 3 new game modes in the last 4 months, which is really impressive, actually, considering how much content we were getting back in 2025. And we're going to be getting a new one later this year, which I believe we still haven't gotten a name for yet. But looking at what the trailer's shown, it's a little bit reminiscent of the Dragon Quest mode you had in BT3, so yeah. So far we have Mission 100, which is a mode I was begging for since the game launched, and we recently got a new survival mode, which is what I've been using as background footage for this video. I think it's enjoyable. Bit of shame there isn't like a dedicated UI for it like with Mission 100. They gave us 2 different versions of survival. The very first is pretty much just fight until you drop. You get to fight each one of the characters. I do appreciate that it seems that it's always going to be random, so you don't have to go through the tediousness of, okay, now I have to fight on my way up until Vegeta, and then on my way up until Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, you know? You just get to kick all of their asses in one fell swoop, and they're always coming in randomly. So there's a sense of refreshness, I guess you could call it like that you get, because you're not dealing in the same order with the same fighters every single time you play the mode, right? Now, the thing is, we have 208 characters at the moment, and the idea is for you to face each one of them, meaning not just a Vegeta, but a Vegeta and that Vegeta's particular transformations. Because remember, each one is counted as a separate character for the game. And we have 30 more coming, and I'm willing to bet anything that we are gonna be getting even more. Yeah, we should, right? My point is, this is probably one of the game modes that is gonna cost the most amount of time for you to complete, because assuming you take 1 minute per fight, it's gonna take around, at this moment, at the time of recording this video, it would take you about 208 minutes. And that's assuming you beat each character within that minute. For perspective, 208 minutes equals to roughly about 3.5 hours. And we're getting more characters, so yeah. You could very well just spend about 4 to 5 hours trying to complete this mode, just mindlessly fighting till your heart's content, which, hey, if that's not the most Dragon Ball Z thing you've ever heard, then I don't know what is, right? Just go and take it out with Goku if you have a problem with that. But yeah, the second mode that you get is Round Robin, and I think this one has a very interesting twist to it. See, you get to choose the opponent you want to face, and based on how strong that opponent is, you'll get a specific amount of destruction points. So every number of matches, a strong foe will appear, and honestly, so far I haven't had any major difficulties. If you're fighting, for example, I don't know, Gogeta or Kefla, you're going to be getting, I think, around 8 or 10 destruction points. Rather, if you face Master Roshi or Goku from OG Dragon Ball, where you'll get probably 2 or 3 destruction points. The catch is that supposedly the more the fight drags out, the stronger the CPU will become. So there's some pressure to try and end the fight quickly, which can lead to you making mistakes. Honestly, I've only really had issues with Goten Super Saiyan 3, who for some reason likes to dodge and use Light Shout, so yeah, as long as you stay in the clear with that, you should be good. Perhaps it's like a slow burn type of thing, you know, like in Mission 100. The first 50 fights aren't that bad. But from that point on, you can tell the CPU is starting to catch on. They'll super counter you more frequently, beat you in clashes, and on top of that, they get insane buffs in attack, defense key, charge, etc. Around the 70 mission mark, you have to start using high DP characters, otherwise you'll be at a huge disadvantage, because if you didn't know, when the power gap between two characters is big enough in Sparking Zero, the stronger foe gets armor. Or super armor, which you can only break with a charge attack or a change rush. Something like flying kicks, rolling hammer, or gut punch, etc. Now, this is not a new thing that Sparking Zero brought in. That's also something that was common in BT3, and I think even beyond that. But my point is, staggering your opponents is not gonna be easy, and that's one of the main reasons why a fight can be so oppressive or difficult. Because while you're trying to punch and get to the chain rush that's gonna break the armor, the other guy the CPU will probably just go for a grab, and there's nothing that's gonna stop them, because you can't stagger them with light attacks. You have to hit them hard, and in order for you to do that, you have to charge. And the computer gets really good at vanishing. So yeah, the whole round robin thing, I really like it. I think it adds a little bit of a fun twist. I really wish that the distraction points and score you get both in survival and round robin actually meant something, not just like stats for a leaderboard. It's kind of shallow, honestly. Just, I don't know, include all of the different accessories that you can include. There's like so many that you could add as just customizable parts for the character's outfit, you know, like scouters, Goku's Saiyan tail, Goku's power pole. There's so many. I'm whiting out right now, but I'm getting blocked right now. But I know you guys in the comments will be able to help me with that. In any case, looking at all of the new things they showcased on the trailer, and the fact that we're still getting new content, is the type of support I was dreaming of seeing for Sparking Zero. It took some time to get there, but we're here, and that's what's important. So, all in all, I feel the devs finally locked in and are starting to give it their all. Or perhaps they just finally managed to bring in more hands to help with the project. Who knows? Either way, it looks like Sparking is going to be making some noise this year, so we'll just have to wait and see. Let's check out how when the DLC finally comes out, and if the hype can be backed up after all this time. That's all I have to say. What do you guys think about the trailer? What's got you the most hype for? Any characters you want? I'm still hoping for my Android 21 to make it into the roster. If Shell could get in, I seriously hope that Android 21 also can make it in. She'll be a very cool addition, and you can bet your sweet baby ass I'm maining that character the moment she drops. So yeah, feel free to share down below in the comments your thoughts, like, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff, and everyone have a great one. Bye bye.